Game on! We are live with the community. This is the Microsoft 365 and Power Platform Development Biweekly Call. I see Todd has had enough. He's already out of here taking his headphones off. Today is August 31st, last day of August. We are headed into fall and so excited to be together today on this call. Let's take a look at what our agenda is. We are going to get the latest updates on the community. We're going to go over some PNP.NET library updates, PowerShell, Yo Teams, MGT, Microsoft Teams Toolkit, Publisher connectors, and then we're going to talk about some samples, team samples, Power Platform samples, script samples, and then it's going to be everybody's favorite time, picture mode together. We're going to show your fabulous faces, and then we're going to have three all-star presenters of the day. Lee Ford is going to cover connecting teams with customers through the power of Azure Communications Services. Stuart's going to roll out a simple solution to assign security roles to Dataverse users, and then Anoop's going to round it out with using OpenAI function calling with Microsoft Graph in a Microsoft Teams bot. So we've got a hat trick of fun for you all today. First, let's talk about some of the resources that are available to all of us in the community. We've got videos done by the community and Microsoft. We've got a LinkedIn group for discussions, which you can absolutely be part of today. Operators are standing by. And we've got open source projects and initiatives for you to take advantage of. Things like PNP.js, CLI for Microsoft 365. And did I mention samples? I think I did, but let's talk about them again. We got tons of samples, over 1,600 samples for you to take advantage of, and they are absolutely free. Team samples, SPFX web parts and extensions, Power Platform list formatting. The list, see what I did there, goes on and on and on. All you need to do is remember one URL, ak.ms/community/home, and you can take advantage of those. And just this in, more than 1,700 samples. Thank you, Vesa, for that. So definitely go check them out. Now, you obviously like community calls because you're on one. So guess what? Our Microsoft 365 and Power Platform Microsoft Speakers Call is back. It's rested and relaxed from its summer vacation, and we have got a wonderful agenda in store for you next Tuesday, which we'll talk about in a moment. We've got our Power Platform monthly call coming up this month, the 20th of September, our Office add-ins, and then, of course, our sibling Microsoft 365 and Power Platform Development Community Call, which you're on right now, and the bi-weekly Viva Connections and SharePoint Framework, which will be next week. You can get access to all these invites at ak.ms/community/calls. So please don't hesitate to add those to your agenda and your calendar so that you can be here with the wonderful community to take advantage of all that we're learning together. Now, as you're watching our presentation today, you may think, I got something cool I want to share. We guarantee you do. We want you to show it off to the community as well. So we invite you to please request to present. Now, don't get overwhelmed by this. Don't at all think it has to be like a flux capacitor that what makes time travel possible. Nope. It can be a feature, a tip, a trick, a technique that you've learned and found valuable that you want to share with the community. Now, if you'd like to buddy up with someone, we got your back. We'll partner you up with an MVP or a Microsoft employee to make sure that the presentation goes perfect and you're confident and comfortable, because we want you to be able to be part of this community. So go fill it out. We'll get back to you. We're starting to fill out that schedule for the rest of the year. We absolutely want to get you involved. Now, that call I mentioned, the Microsoft Speakers Only call, it's going to be back next week, 5th of September. We're going to feature the Hack Together winners. So this one's going to be on guest user overview by Dan and Jeppy. And then Irene is going to cover add actions to files with custom actions across Microsoft 365. And Marcel's going to be on. It's going to be a two-part series for creating a Power App from your ASP.NET API using Visual Studio and Power Platform. So some pro code opportunities there that we are all super excited about. Now, as you see all these initiatives, you may think, I want to get involved, but I'm not quite sure how, where, what, when, how, what do I do? Well, Sharing is Caring is a program here that's to provide hands-on guidance for you. And what that means is we're going to join live Teams calls. We just had one yesterday. It was fantastic. Number of people. We're going to walk you through things like submitting your first pull request. Maybe it's been a while and you just need a refresher. GitHub changes all the time. You can join multiples of these, and we'll walk you through how to accomplish those things. We'll explain things like what is a fork? What is a commit? What is blame? What is raw? What is all these things? We're going to learn together. Safe space, not recorded, so you can absolutely take advantage of asking any and all questions that you want, and we'll complete all these things together. It's a great way to work together with other members of the community as well. We've got a new session scheduled because one did happen yesterday, so check it out at ak.ms/sharingiscaring. Then, of course, once you have contributed, we want to recognize you. That's where our recognition program comes in. This is a program that we have that's powered by Credly, and it has a bunch of new badges coming out. In fact, we've got one that's just right for the season. PSL, Pumpkin Spice, a lot of commits. These are fun badges that are going to recognize you for the fun work that you're doing and the amazing contributions that you're doing. Some of them are going to be fun with, which you can see here in our own little PSL branded one. We've got more coming up later in this call. In fact, you're going to learn about in just a minute. And we've got even more themes coming up with hackathons and all that. So definitely opt in, ak.ms/community/recognition, and we will get you your badges. Now, let's move into some project-specific updates, and we're going to kick it off with Bert.
Awesome. Thank you, David. So for the PNP world, PNP.NET world to be more precise, what happened? We've been doing some catch-up after the long holiday break. So most of the PRs and issues are dealt with, I would say. So on the framework side, Niels Andreessen did some work to fix the audience model audience field provisioning. Now they get the proper label in the correct language. It was hard-coded to English. Now it's kind of language neutral. So thanks for that, Niels. Mikkel Mikkelsen, what a name, added support for time zone ID when we provision new site collections. So that's a cool thing to add. I will port that also to Chorus Decay, so that's a good thing. For the Chorus Decay side, what happened? Jack Stanger did some work to expose the long-running operation. We have that like if you do a graph call and you want to kind of check back on, is it done? If it's an async operation, you can kind of go back and check, is it still running or not? That was internal to Chorus Decay. Now it's also external, so if you can just use that in your own developments. We have some issue with enumerating private shared site collections, and that was fixed by the GitHub user VoltPT. I don't know his real name. And finally, is a plethora of small fixes like special care handling and property bags and more. So overall, we're doing good. Now, David talked about batches. So David, yes. So I'm happy to present two new batches, one for PNP Framework and one for PNP Chorus Decay. Awesome batches. By the way, big thank you for David and Paul that helped, that actually did the work to create the batches. So I'm just a messenger here. So kudos for those guys setting this up. But looking forward to grant you all those batches for your PNP Framework and Chorus Decay commits. And with that, I think we can move to PowerShell. Yay, see Todd waving. PowerShell is a bit in vacation mode. Gotham is still out. So I think the short summary is running good, running well. Please use it. If you have questions, use the chat and so on. So this me just saying that I didn't prep the slide. So let's move to the next one.
All right.
Thank you guys.
Awesome. Thank you, Bert. And the Todd goes wild. Ooh. Okay, let's move into Yo Teams with Rick.
Hey, we're also stepping out of vacation. I just arrived yesterday back from vacation, so this is my first Teams call back from vacation. what a call it is. We also did a new release that was this morning. So we put it in preview mode still. Appy fixed some the HTML that was generated if you generated a tab and the HTML was not valid, and some code checkers, static code checkers, they didn't like that. So Appy quickly fixed that one. And Stefan, he didn't put his own name in there. He updated it so we support manifest version 1.16. So if you want to give the preview a try, help us out, try it, see if it works. Then we can do a full release within a few weeks. And that's all for me.
Awesome. Thank you, Rick. Let's move into Teams Toolkit with Jan.
Thanks, David. No new releases on the VS Code side. We're still hammering away on the pre-release. So if you haven't had a chance to try that out, please do and give us some feedback. I think last week or 2 weeks ago, the 17.7 of VS came out. So there's a new version of Teams Toolkit in that. And we're also working on the CLI. So if you didn't know, we also have a CLI tool. So we're working on some quality of life improvements there and fixing some of the janky things that were going on. So you'll see some updates to that coming soon. If you're interested in trying that, just reach out. It's not quite published yet, but it will be soon. Now, also working on Copilot stuff and some new templates and samples and tutorials. So you'll see that coming soon. And as always, if you want to chat or share feedback, there's a link there. You can schedule some time directly with me. Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks, John. Let's move into MGT or Microsoft Graph Toolkit with Seb.
Thanks, David. So what is new? We shipped our version 3.1.1. In there, we have some improvements to our login control, where we're helping with some focus stuff, especially around when you want to get out of the login control. And our MGT person and MGT person cards, which was brought by a community member, Andrew Gaskell, came in and wanted to comment on our stuff, and we actually agreed that the way that we were doing hovering on top of the person card was not great. So Andrew proposed a fix that we accepted, that we merged. So always open to community contribution to make your life and your solutions way better. What we're working on, we're actually working on as we speak to release 3.12, which be our next minor with a bunch of improvements, again, by community members. And finally, what's next? We are looking at big rocks right now, big capabilities that we're bringing in, especially around our search and our files components. And if you want to propose, suggest new capabilities, new controls to the Graph Toolkit, feel free to come in and ask on our repo, aka.ms/mgt. David, back to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Seb. Let's get into independent publisher connectors. Joss is out traveling today, so I will cover this. No real new updates, but we are open for contributors. In fact, if you notice, the independent publisher connectors are one below first party. So you could be the one that pushes it up to even or above. So please definitely get involved here. Take advantage. It's one of the easier ways to get involved, and there's lots of opportunities to collaborate. Super, super fun. All right, let's move into script samples with Paul Bullock.
Hey, David, thank you. So Script Samples is a place where you can automate your scripts against M365. We've got support for the Microsoft Graph, PnP PowerShell, SPM Management Shell, CLI, and many, many more. And your samples get published to the Microsoft Sample Solution Gallery, so which is super, super cool. We've got a couple of new samples for PnP PowerShell. So we've got Create Library and Add Custom Content Type by Hamid. And then updated scenarios we've got for PnP PowerShell again. We've got some improvements to the report for SharePoint storage savings by trimming document versions by Casper Larson, which is awesome that those scripts get improved continuously. So thank you for all the efforts going on as part of that. Again, if you want to contribute to this repo, I'm happy to support you. You can reach out to me on LinkedIn, Twitter, Pigeon if you want. Reach out to me. I'll help you out if you get stuck or you need support. And thank you very much. Back to you, David.
Awesome. Thank you, Paul. Let's move on to team samples with the German of the Bobs, otherwise Bob German.
Hey, good to see everybody. We have a great new sample this week with thanks to Joao Mendez. This is another one from the Teams Global Hack. There's a link at the top of the screen here, aka.ms/Teams Hack Winners, with all the information on that. This is a dashboard application written in SharePoint Framework, which shows that, you can use your SharePoint skills to build Teams apps. And this is a pretty cool one. It shows the calendar, recent files, newsfeed, and more. You can get that at the link on the screen, and please submit your favorite samples and help our community grow. Back to you, David.
Awesome. Thank you, Bob, and thank you, everybody, for those amazing hack-togethers. Let's move on to Power Platform samples with April Dunham.
Thanks, David. So we don't have any new samples to highlight this week, but we would love to see your samples on our sample gallery there at Power Platform-samples, Power Automate, Power Apps, Power FX, Power BI, Power Virtual Agents, Pages. We have it all. So we'd love to see your samples there. But we do have something exciting to announce, and that's the Power Platform Global AI Hack. If you go to aka.ms/hacktogether/Power Platform-AI, you can get all the details, but this will be a great opportunity from September 14th through the 28th for you to get hands-on with the Power Platform Copilot experiences and the AI features that we have to offer, all while learning with our live sessions that we have, learning with each other. You can hack together with groups of 3 or alone, whatever your preference is, and we can win some awesome badges like this Power Platform AI Hack Together badge. So you get to build some cool stuff, hopefully put it in our Power Platform samples repos there, and all learn about these great AI features that we have. We have Ryan Cunningham kicking it off, the Power Apps VP, and Steven Siciliano closing us out, the Power Automate VP. They're here at Microsoft doing some great sessions, so you get to learn a lot and get your hands on with these great new tools that we have in the Power Platform. So I hope that you'll participate. Go to that link. You can register and get involved, and we'd love to see you in the hack. Back to you, David.
Awesome. Excited for that badge. Thank you, April. This is exciting stuff, everybody, so check it out. All right. It is picture time. So get those fantastic faces showing on your camera. Vesa has already taken over the screen.
Yep, here we go. A bit pixelated today. We cannot fix that. That could be somewhere in the system. Let's see. No can do, no can do. Oh, it's getting, maybe. Oh, it's getting better. No, it's moving. No, it's okay. It's okay. We're going to do a recording anyway. Doesn't matter. I will put the recording on. 3, 2, 1. And let's do some hand waving, everybody. Thank you for joining. Everybody, cool to see so many hands. I have no idea who you people are because I cannot. Well, this is like 8-bit pixelated, like David, you started the call today. So
yeah, we're staying
everybody.
in theme. We're staying in theme. All right.
Exactly.
Awesome. All right, let's get back to our presenters. Speaking of theme, let's get our quarter put into the machine. And let's kick off with our first presenter of the day. Lee Ford is going to cover connecting teams with your customers through the power of Azure Communications Services. Lee, take it on over.
Thank you, David. Sorry, having a battle with the headset. Yeah, welcome to our session. I'm going to talk today about connecting Microsoft Teams with the power of Azure Communications Services. So this isn't an Azure call, but it's kind of a cool little scenario that I kind of thought up and thought it'd be quite good for the community call. So let's quickly get started. So very quickly, I don't have much time. So about myself, my name's Lee Ford. I'm a developer by trade. I like to write community samples as well. You can follow me on Twitter, LinkedIn, GitHub, wherever. Yes, I like to do some DIY and exercise when I can. So the agenda, obviously we haven't got a particularly long session here, but we're going to answer in theory 2 questions. So what is Azure Communication Services? So I'll quickly go over what that is and then sort of how that works with inside of Teams and how we can kind of use the power of ACS with inside of Teams. So very quick primer on Azure Communication Services. So this is not my words, this is Microsoft's words, but ultimately it's a multi-channel communication API for voice, video, chats, text, SMS, email, blah, blah, blah. And here we've got just a very, very kind of basic kind of outline of what ACS is and how it kind of hangs together. It's kind of central to the solution. And then you've got Teams on one side and you've got the client application on the other. And we'll get into this in a bit more detail in a minute. So if we just break it down a little bit, it's effectively an offering like Microsoft Teams. People might say, oh, it's a white label Teams and it works like Teams. It has the same features and functionality. And some of that is actually true, but it's using the same underlying technology as Teams. So something called IC3. And effectively that is a platform that both Teams and ACS rely on. So for things like traffic traversal or translations, setting up of meetings, all that sort of stuff. A lot of that is done on IC3. So it's not a product as such like Teams. You can't just buy ACS and buy a license and away you go. It's a service that you add into your existing application that you have, or an application that you're going to build using ACS. So you can only put ACS in Azure, but your code can run anywhere. So the ACS bit sits in Azure in your tenancy, and then you run your code against that ACS. So similar to something like, say, a bot framework within Azure. The bot always has to be in Azure, the registration, but ultimately your code can be anywhere outside of that. So what can you do with ACS? You can effectively use multiple modalities in your application. So again, it's not something that you just buy as a service. You have your own application. So we've got things like meetings, PST and calling, SMS, email. I think there are a few others. Some of them are in preview, but ultimately these are the kind of core functionality. And like I say, some of these do translate over to Teams as well. So we'll quickly touch on what IC3 is. So it's the Intelligent Chat and Communications Cloud, very catchy name. And like I say, it's an underlying platform that Teams and ACS both share. So if we kind of just quickly map out how this looks, we've got IC3 at the bottom, we've got Teams on the left, using IC3 underneath, and then ACS sits in front of IC3, and then your app sits sort of on top of ACS. And effectively what we're going to talk about today is kind of integrating Teams and your app through IC3, essentially. So what does this have to do with Teams? So there are some native or direct interop scenarios that ACS works with Teams, and these are voice and video. So this might be in meetings or one-to-one calls, obviously chat inside a meeting or something, and then screen sharing. So if you're in a meeting, you can share your screen with an ACS user, or an ACS user could share their screen with Teams users. So we've got a very quick scenario here where we've got, say, a Teams meeting, and there's kind of 4 different scenarios that you might be able to kind of take part in this meeting. And if we just sort of cut it in half, the top is what you already have today. So a Teams user can join the Teams meeting using desktop, mobile browser, or an anonymous user, so then they don't have a Microsoft account, or they're not signed in with that account. They can still join a Teams meeting. They can put in their name as whatever, and still have that experience. It's effectively the same experience though. And then below is what you can add with ACS. So in a Teams perspective, everything stays the same, but from an ACS user perspective, you can join either using a Teams user, so you could create your own ACS application, but still use your Teams identity to authenticate and use whatever application you're building, or you can do a BYOI user, which effectively handles you can do whatever authentication methods to allow, or any authentication methods. Maybe you don't have any. It's up to you if you're brave enough. But ultimately, it's just another way of kind of linking into that Teams meeting. So rather than just having 2 entry points, we've got 4. So here's an example interop. So let's say with a Teams meeting again, because I think it's probably the easiest scenario to go through. Effectively, we have the app client, the app client side of the app that you've built that requests a token similar to like an access token, which effectively grants you access to use ACS. And then you can then, using that token, request some sort of access to ACS. So in this scenario, you'd request the token from ACS, then you'd get the Teams meeting details that you're going to join, and then you can effectively join that Teams meeting using your ACS credentials, using the ACS client rather than the Teams client. So we'll quickly get into today's demo. So what we're going to try and solve here is a problem. So you're an organization who uses Teams, but you're required to speak to your consumers or customers who may or may not use Teams, and you can't be sure that they do. So you want to be able to do this without having them to create an account or download Teams, or kind of just as long as they've got a web browser on a device, mobile or desktop, it doesn't matter. They can effectively join the meeting. So what we're going to try and do here is create a seamless way for a Teams user to host a remote support session. So the kind of idea here is that, I need to help this person. They don't have a Teams account, or they don't have Teams. I can just give them a code to join, and they will be able to join from the browser. And if we quickly look at the kind of the solution for the demo today, we've got a static web app running in the middle. That's handling the communication with ACS. It's also got we've got a database connection for storing the Teams meeting details, which we're creating through Microsoft Graph. And then right at the bottom is where the external users, so the external user web browsers to the client side of the static web app, and then obviously calls any backend APIs that are part of the static web app as well. Okay, so demo time. So let's cross our fingers and hopefully the demo behaves. So I will just bring up Teams. So like I say, we'll try and explain kind of the scenario here. So the idea is that I've spoken to the one and they were saying, oh, maybe I'm on the phone to them now and I'm saying, oh yeah, look, I can't really see what your problem is. Can you share your screen, or can we have a call or something about it? And you'd click. So we're using a messaging extension in this scenario. I probably shouldn't have told you that, but to generate a request. And obviously there's different ways you could do it. You could do it with a bot, but ultimately in this case, I'm going to use a messaging extension. So I can put PMP demo to this, this is the name of the session, and then I'll put help. Okay. And if we cross our fingers, hopefully we get a session created for us, which we have, thankfully. And this generates a meeting ID. Now, this meeting ID is the Teams meeting ID that you can already join by ID and things like that. So effectively what's happening in the background is we've created a meeting using Microsoft Graph. We've got that meeting ID generated. That's stored in Cosmos, and I'll get into that in a little bit, why we need that. But ultimately, what I can do now is I can go to a browser. In this case, I've just got it open here. So I'm not using Teams. I can put in the code. It's found the meeting, and hopefully it's going to work. It's going to let me join. So I'm just going to start the call. So I'm joining the call now. So I'm waiting to be admitted. I'm not actually in the in the meeting yet. I'm kind of in the lobby. And now if I go back to Teams, I can then click join from here and join that same meeting. So I'm not going to join with any audio. Oh, there's me. Okay, but I am going to join with video. And as you can see now, I'm in the call. And if I go back to here, I'm still waiting to be admitted. If I go to people, I can admit that person. And now I can see both of us in the call. And obviously, if I go back to here, you can see me from the flipped angle. And that is effectively the session in a nutshell. So you can share your screen, and if we wanted to add the chat to the meeting, we could add that in. I haven't done that in this scenario, but ultimately that's how we can quickly spin up a Teams meeting. So quickly go over some of how it all works. So we have an Azure Communications Service instance. You don't really have to do too much with that other than just create one, have one created, and get the there's a connection string that you put into your code that allows you to generate tokens for ACS users. And then we have a bot. Now the bot is used for the messaging extension to be able to call the Graph API to generate the meeting request. And then finally we have the Cosmos database. And all we're storing in the Cosmos database is the meeting details. And the reason we need that is that we can't join a Teams meeting using just the ID. Using ACS, we have to have the full join URL. So what we do is we allow them to enter the ID. We do a lookup in Cosmos to say, okay, we've got a meeting with this ID, and then we then provide the web URL for the ACS code to join. If I quickly bring up the code, if we just go through the kind of the app split into two, really, from a back-end point of view, we have the kind of the requesting of a meeting, and then we have the back-end APIs for the external user to be able to pull through by entering an ID and pulling through the meeting details. So in the kind of the bot perspective or the messaging extension, it's pretty straightforward. We handle a HTTP request. This is obviously this is a static web app, so this is an Azure function, and effectively we then send this to the bot, and then inside of the bot we effectively handle the submit action. And what we're doing is we're capturing some of the information. We're creating a graph client, creating a Cosmos client, and then we're creating an online meeting using this start time and end time that's been generated from today. And then we're effectively storing that meeting in Cosmos database. And then what we're doing is we're creating an adaptive card and returning that to the end user with the join button. And that's pretty much all there is to it. It's a pretty straightforward thing. Obviously, we've got an error here. If there's an error, we can return that too. And then from a sort of the web client backend sort of thing, we have a very basic function here about actually creating a token and a user for the client to be able to join the Teams meeting in ACS. And it's a very, very straightforward thing. Effectively, we get the request through from HTTP request. We effectively create a client using the connection string for ACS, we create a user, and we get a token, and we choose what type of modality we want that token to be for, what scopes we're going to use, and we return it back to the client. And then finally, when someone enters an ID in the client-side code, obviously we have to then go and pull through that Teams meeting, check if it is even a meeting. Someone just enters some random numbers. We want to check if that numbers actually attribute to a meeting. So what we do here is we do a lookup. We check the database. If there's a Teams meeting with the join ID, if not, we return a 404. And if we have one, then we return the web URL and the meeting ID back to the client-side code. And I think that's about it, really. I can potentially, if I've got time, quickly show you the client-side code, but I feel like we might be running out of time. But let's quickly have a look. From an app point of view, it's a very straightforward process. We just have we create an ACS connector. We effectively pass in through the token, and then once we've got the ID and the token and a web URL, we can then join the meeting. And then we've got effectively in here, we've got some effects to effectively validate the ID is correct, and also join the meeting. So yeah, I won't go through every line by line because we might be here a while, but ultimately this is all obviously public. You can kind of peruse at your own leisure, but ultimately that is the client-side code. And then finally, I think there might be one more slide after that. So yeah, so that's it really for me. It is on the PnP samples, Teams Dev samples already, so you can go to that link and download it, try it for yourself. It is a static web app. You can, I've been running it locally using the static web app CLI, so you don't have to set it all up in Azure if you don't want to. There's a kind of a step-by-step for getting up and running on your local machine. And that's it. Thank you.
Awesome, Lee. Very, very cool stuff. I love the fact that I can actually join a call with myself, so it doesn't look so weird that I'm talking to myself anymore. Explain it that way. Great job. Thank you for sharing. Put the links in the chat, everybody, so definitely go check out that sample. All right, let's move into our second presenter. Stuart is going to cover simple solution to assign security roles to Dataverse users. Now, everybody, this is Stuart's first presentation on the call. Let's show him a little community love. Stuart, if you want to take on over the screen share.
Thank you, David. Just bringing up my share, just be a moment.
All right, it's loaded. Looks great.
Excellent. So yeah.
Oh, actually, no, sorry.
From me.
Could we get you to just share the screen instead of SharePoint or PowerPoint Live?
Yeah.
Just because there's sometimes little Teams glitches. Perfect.
Yeah, it can be a bit weird sometimes, can't it? Yeah, not a problem. We don't have too many slides anyway. It's just a quick introduction, really. So, little introduction from me. I'm Stuart Baxter from Scotland. Microsoft MVP in business applications since June. I do blogging on a LinkedIn blog, What's New in Power Platform, community super user since January, and I am passionate about finding simple solutions to complex problems. And some LinkedIn details there as well. Why won't you go to the next page? Here we are. Yeah, our problem. There's various different interfaces that exist for managing the different aspects of Power Platform security. So you would go into one interface to assign security roles, another one to add users to teams, another one again to add column security. All of a sudden, you've got 5 or 6 tasks to do something that should be quite simple, like onboarding a new user. Traditional IT teams are not always familiar with Power Platform, so if you're working with a customer, hand this over to them. Quite frankly, they're going to be scratching their heads and saying, why are there all these steps to do something so simple? And as I touched on earlier on, Power Platform has many different components for security. Our solution: simplify your security using Entra ID groups and a Canvas app. And straight into our demo. Give me 2 seconds, and we will tab over to this one. And here is our solution here. Doesn't look particularly fancy. It's all just built using modern controls, just for simplicity. To bring up here, we've got our team. Let's go for another group. We can see the security roles assigned, column security profiles, in this case none, and which users are part of this team. I want to add an extra security role, just click edit. A nice little sidebar here, and we can add in bot contributor, for example. And that'll update live as well. And we'll see over here bot contributor in just a moment. Should be available there. Little demo gremlin there. Not quite behaving, but we'll have a wee look at that in a bit. Again, column security, you can add in whichever ones you want. Nice little search on here. And most importantly, users as well. So really simple for users to use. If you hand this over to someone who's not familiar with Power Platform, as long as they know what a security role is, what a column security profile is, and what a user is, they should be able to work this out quite easily. Back-end stuff, as this is a super simple solution, there's not anything fancy in here. Our edit buttons here, basically all these do is update a context variable to make our sidebar visible or not. Within our sidebar items, we're on check, we're using really simple, out of the box Azure AD connectors, add user to group here for our users. If we go column security, even simpler than that. We're using, with me, simple relate or unrelate for on check and on uncheck. So really, really simple connectors, nothing fancy in here whatsoever. And I feel like that really achieves the problem that we're trying to solve. Appreciate that was a very, very short demo. Does anyone have any questions?
So we'll have the questions in the chat. If you do have questions, we'll put them in the chat. We just have to lock down the mics because we got so many people on the call. But that was excellent, simple use case there that you're problem solving with, Stuart. Thank you. There's a link here, everybody. Put the link in the chat as well. This is already in the solution gallery, the sample solution gallery. So Stuart, thank you for sharing this with us. We really, really, really appreciate you taking the time, and also the fact that you put it up in a sample so that others can benefit by downloading that sample and learning together.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Excellent job. All right. Well, let's move into our last presenter for the day. Anoop is going to cover using OpenAI function calling with Microsoft Graph in a Microsoft Teams bot.
All right. Thank you very much, David. All right. Hello, everyone. So like David mentioned, this is a Teams bot which uses OpenAI function calling and Microsoft Graph. So let's start with the boring slide first. My name is Anoop, and I work as a developer in a company called as Content and Cloud, and I'm a Microsoft MVP in the Microsoft 365 developer category. Links to my profile, blogs, and Twitter and GitHub. You can follow me on those platforms if needed. All right, let's look at the demo first, and then we'll go and look into the code. Okay, so what we have here, like I said, is a Teams bot. Now you might see some chat history. Please ignore all that for now. Imagine that this is a new chat. And this is a bot, which is a personal assistant. And what it does is, it can provide information for you based on what you have in your calendar, or in your contact details, or your planner, etc. So at the moment, it's just these three elements, but it can be extended in the future as well. So for example, if I go and ask the bot for some reason, who am I? What happens here is the question is sent to the bot. The bot then uses the power of Microsoft Graph and OpenAI, and then gets back the result and displays it. So we can go ahead and ask another question related to our calendar. So to say, when am I meeting Megan next? And then what happens here again is based on the question, OpenAI tells that we need to use Microsoft Graph in order to get the events from the calendar. So all the events from my calendar are retrieved, and those events are sent to OpenAI, which is then formatted in a nice way, and then the result is obtained saying I'm meeting Megan for the sprint meeting on September 1st, and with all the other time details as well. And if I ask another question saying what are my contact details, so this time what happens is again Microsoft Graph comes into picture, and then the information about myself is retrieved, and that information is sent to OpenAI, and then OpenAI formats that response and then provides it in a nice manner. So like I said, the scope is limited at the moment to my contact details, my meetings, and my tasks. So if I just ask a random question saying, what time is the next train home? So, because this is out of scope, OpenAI comes back saying, it can't help with train schedules. Right. So that's the demo. So like I said, it's a bot which uses the power of OpenAI and Microsoft Graph in order to get the information and show that to us. Now back to the slides. So the scope of this bot, it is applicable to both OpenAI and Azure OpenAI. However, in this particular sample, we are using OpenAI only, but it can be changed to Azure OpenAI very easily. And then the OpenAI models that to which this sample is applicable are GPT 3.5 Turbo and GPT-4. Those can be changed in the configuration, which we'll have a look in a minute. Right. So before jumping into the code, let's understand what OpenAI function calling is. Once we have an idea of that, we can look into how we can use function calling within our code. So the way I think of OpenAI function calling is it provides an ability to extend the OpenAI models. So basically adds the capability to get real-time information. Say, for example, if you go to ChatGPT today or any other application which uses OpenAI APIs or Azure OpenAI API, and if you go to one of those applications and then ask for current weather, then the reply is, it won't be able to get the current weather because the model has been trained up till September 2021, so it can't retrieve that information. However, what OpenAI have done a few months back is they've given us the ability to inform OpenAI that our code has some functions which can get weather information. So it can be, getting the current weather or getting the weather forecast, etc. Now, if we inform OpenAI that our code has these functions and provide our question along with it, then OpenAI tells us which function we need to call from our code based on the question. So in this case, for example, if we ask the current weather, then OpenAI and also tell OpenAI that we have a function in our code which is called get current weather, then OpenAI tells us you need to call the get current weather function. And if there are any arguments saying location or something, OpenAI tells us what the value of that argument should be as well. Now that's function calling in brief, but let's take a look at that in detail for our current scenario. So here on the left, we've got this Teams application or Teams bot, which uses OpenAI API. Now, this can be a Teams app or any other app, like I said, which uses OpenAI API. As you can see, imagine that this app doesn't have function calling ability yet. So if I ask a question saying, am I meeting John soon? Then OpenAI responds saying, I do not have access to your calendar. Now, with the introduction of function calling, what happens is we send the question, am I meeting John soon, to OpenAI. Along with that, we also send a few functions that we have in our code. Now, these functions in this case are get my details, get my events, and get my tasks. There can be more functions as well, but at the moment, we'll send these functions. And we also tell what arguments these functions expect. Now, OpenAI gets this information, and based on the question, am I meeting John soon? What OpenAI tells us is we need to call the get my events function from our code. And it also tells that there's an argument called as future events, which has to be set to true. Now, this future events argument, we would have passed that to OpenAI. So based on the question that we sent earlier, am I meeting John soon? OpenAI tells us we need to call the get my events function. Now, if the question was something different, like when are my next tasks coming up, OpenAI would have told us that we need to call the get my tasks function and not get my events. So once we have that response from OpenAI, what we do in our code is we go ahead and run this get my events function. So that function basically uses Microsoft Graph, gets the information from the calendar, and then that raw response, the JSON with all the meeting details, is passed back to OpenAI. So here you can see a sample response which says that is a particular meeting, and in the attendees, although it says Megan, there is an attendee John as well. I have just hidden that. And then that particular response is sent to OpenAI. Now, what OpenAI does is, based on the initial question and this particular response, it converts that JSON into natural language and tells that you're meeting John at 11 a.m. tomorrow. And what we do in our application is we take that response and put that in the chat. So that's what function calling is. Based on the question, OpenAI tells us which function to call, hence the name function calling. We then call that function, send the response to OpenAI, and display the response from OpenAI again. Right. Now that we have understood what function calling is, let's look at the code for the Teams bot. Now, this particular sample is present in the Teams samples repository. If you go to that sample, it is built using Teams Toolkit. So if you want to test it locally, all we have to do is just press F5 and then sit back and relax. And let's look at the code. So in the code, we've got a few env files. The first one is the env.local. Now this is used when we are developing the app locally. So in that particular file, we just need to go ahead and set the OpenAI API key. And also we need to set the model that we need to use. Now, in order to get the key, we have to go to the OpenAI website and create an account, and then we can get an API key from there. The other settings that we see in this env file are related to the bot. So if you've worked with bots before, you know that there's an app registration for the bot, tenant IDs, authorities, and all those settings, which are all present over here. Right. So once we set the keys, this particular bot is a command bot. So we've got this initialize file. Just before that, this particular sample is an extension of the Teams SSO bot sample, which was created by Microsoft. That particular sample shows how to use SSO within Microsoft Teams bot. I've just taken that sample and added OpenAI to it. So it's a command bot, but can be any other bot as well. So this particular bot is a command bot and just accepts any command, which is sent to it. So basically any question. So here we start with some config wherein we put the port ID and the password, and then we do the SSO config, which includes defining the graph scopes, the client ID, client secret, and the tenant ID as well. And finally, we've got the command. In this case, there are no commands. However, there is one SSO command, which is that one, user query handler. So as per the name, it is used to handle user queries. And if we look at that file, which is called user query handler, that particular class implements the Teams FX port SSO command handler, and that particular interface has this method called as or asks to implement this method called as handle command received, and this is where a lot of the hard work happens. So once the command is received, what we do is we get the on behalf of user credential, and with that credential, we go ahead and create a graph client. Now, these two classes, the on behalf of user credential and create Microsoft Graph with credential method, these are provided by the Microsoft Teams FX library. So with just these two lines, we are able to get the on behalf of credential and token, and then also go ahead and create an authenticated graph client, which is basically authenticated on behalf of the logged in user. So just two lines for that. And then we go ahead and just set the graph client. And over here, what we do is we go ahead and initialize OpenAI. So in this case, we are using the OpenAI library. We just go ahead and initialize the OpenAI client by passing the key to it. And once that happens, we need to pass some of these messages to OpenAI. So the way OpenAI works is we need to pass a system message first, and then some of the user questions, and the functions, which we'll have a look in a minute, and then finally the user question itself, like I mentioned earlier. Right. So the first is the system message. So in this case, the system message is something like, you are a personal assistant. You need to help the user with their queries. That message can be changed to anything based on the requirement. And then we add in the user question. So in this case, when am I meeting Megan next? And then we go ahead and call OpenAI with these messages. Now in the call OpenAI method, what we do is we create this create chat completion method. That is part of the OpenAI library. And to that, we pass in the message and the functions. So the message in this case is just one question, which is, when am I meeting Megan next? And then the functions, we pass three functions like I showed in the slide earlier: get my details, get my events, and get my tasks. Now, the important bit is the description of these functions. So each function need to have a clear and concise description, so that OpenAI can look at the question and then, based on the description of these functions, tell us which function to call. So in this case, the question is, when am I meeting Megan next? And OpenAI looks at this particular description, which is that one, get events in a calendar of the current user. So based on that, it tells us to call that particular function. So just to show you how that function looks, this is just one of the functions. So the name of the function is get my events. It has a nice description. We need to pass in a couple of, in this case, one argument, but it can be more than one argument. That particular argument tells us what to do. Right. So that's the function. So what we do is we pass the messages and the functions to OpenAI, and then OpenAI responds saying, you need to call a function. Name of the function is that, and we need to call it with those particular arguments. So it's a OpenAI response in a JSON. So what we do here is go ahead and parse that JSON, and then get the name of the function, get the arguments for that function as well. So we know that we need to call the function getMyEvents with the argument get future events only as true. And once we know which function to call, we go ahead and call that function, in this case, getMyEvents. And here you can see that the implementation of getMyEvents function is such that we go ahead and call the /me/events using the graph client. And then this will return all the events to us. So we take those events, which is in a raw JSON format, and then pass the result of that back to OpenAI. So in order to do that, we just have to get the function result, which is the JSON, and then put it in a format called as function message, which is again just a nice JSON to say this is a function message or a function response. So we get that result, pass that back to OpenAI, and then OpenAI then responds saying, we need to stop the execution now, and then that's the response which OpenAI provides, saying you are meeting Megan on the date, etc. Right. So basically what happens here is the raw JSON with the event details is passed to OpenAI, and then OpenAI looks at the question and this response and then converts that into plain text and sends it back to us. Right. So the summary, function calling is available in OpenAI and Azure OpenAI. In this particular sample, we saw how to use that in OpenAI, but it can be changed to Azure OpenAI as well. This particular sample is not prod ready because we are using OpenAI. It makes sense to use Azure OpenAI because we are dealing with internal data. So I am planning to create a pull request soon for the sample with using Azure OpenAI. And then the other thing is because we are calling OpenAI twice here, in the second request, there's no need to pass the functions. So I'll need to clean up that as well. Right. And here are some of the resources that were used as part of this. And I'll be monitoring the chat for any questions. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thanks, Anoop. I expect to see a high use of this on Mondays as we all come back from the weekend going, who am I? What am I doing here? Why am I? Vesa, I think you had something you wanted to add a little bit here, right?
Yeah, just to kind of recap what Anoop is showing there, and this is actually really key around the ChatGPT. If those who know how OpenAI works on ChatGPT has been trained on the data until September 2021. So it's not really that you're asking from the ChatGPT that tell me the latest and the functionalities. In here, we're using the natural language processing capabilities of ChatGPT and OpenAI to resolve the intent. And that's where it shines. So basically, the AI is kind of able to figure out, oh, it's chatting, somebody's writing something, or in audio even, and then translate that to text. Oh, the intent is actually about the meetings. Okay, I know. Oh, you told me that if it's about the meetings, then you need to call. You have the API to call them. Got it. I'm AI. You told me these instructions. Let me pass it back to you. And that's really the key. Like we chatted in the chat as well with some people. So the intent resolution is really the superpower of OpenAI. That's where it really truly shines. Anyway, recapping just what Anoop was showing.
Awesome. Yeah, very cool stuff. All right. Well, everybody, I think we tallied up the scores. Everybody's a winner today, so thank you to Lee, Stuart, and Anoop, our fantastic presenters of the day. You may have questions for them and want to talk to them about it. You may be watching this after the fact. We have an opportunity for you to do just that. Our community calls conversations allows you to continue the conversation. These are dedicated conversation spaces in the Power Users site for Power Apps. It is absolutely free to create an account if you don't already have one, and you can go let them know that you appreciate or have questions. And like I said, tell them you appreciate it. Just doing that is a contribution in and of itself. I know a lot of hard work goes into making these presentations, so please just let them know that you appreciate it. Or if you had questions, engage with them. Absolutely go do that. We'll put all these links in the chat right afterwards. Now, you also may have seen we've got a new Discord server set up. So absolutely welcoming you all to join that today, ak.ms/community/discord. We've got upwards of about 400 people in right now, I think. So opportunities to start seeing new announcements. We're getting integrated with some APIs on the badges, so you can see those first and there immediately as soon as they're available. So it's a fun way to be part of the cool kids. And of course, we would love to hear back from you. So please give us your feedback. Even if you've already filled this out, let us know things are still working. It's a great way for us to show management that this is a worthwhile investment and that we can look to scale into bigger and better things in the future to support all of you in the community. We really appreciate when you do this. Management takes it seriously and they love to see the feedback. So definitely don't hesitate to fill that in again. Well, this is it, everybody. The recording will be available in 24 hours or less on the Microsoft 365 and Power Platform Community YouTube channel. You can access that at ak.ms/community/videos. You're going to get a link in the chat that says, hey, the call's done, recording's ready, feel free to download, but it's a little liar. You cannot unless you're a Microsoft employee. So your best way is to go to the YouTube accounts, subscribe, and you will get alerted as soon as the call is available to you. You can also follow us on X, or the artist formerly known as Twitter, for updates at M365PNP, or the LinkedIn group ak.ms/community/li. The next Microsoft 365 and Power Platform biweekly call is September 14th, 2 weeks from today, or the next VB Connection SharePoint Framework next week, September 7th, 7 a.m., same bat time, same bat channel. Check it out, ak.ms/community/calls. Thank you, everybody, again, for attending. You are what makes this community so awesome. We really appreciate everything you bring. Have a great, wonderful rest of the week. And if you're in the States, a wonderful long weekend. And that's it. Game over.